This is a special presentation of Overtime, brought to you by Bruns Gutzwiller, the right choice for your next construction project, and by FCN Bank, building stronger communities. Member FDIC.
Hello, world. This is Overtime with Terrance and Leon. As always, remember to subscribe, like, and rate and review. And don't forget, be a friend. Tell a friend about Overtime. Leon, we've been putting this podcast together for the past several months, but this project that we're on right now is unlike anything we've done.
Yeah, this is going to be our first try at the live audience, and it was a daunting task.
Yeah.
We had to get ourselves into marketing mode. We had to get ourselves into, okay, how do we tell the story and how do we share this information with the people that we want to be there, and just how do we make Batesville welcoming to our next guest?
Yeah, and quite the guest we were able to have on. You know, a name that's known all around the country in the world of competitive swimming, but also a name that's known in the political arena in a certain sense, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the thing, that tonight we have a mix, that we had a mix of a crowd between the kids who are relating to the athlete
Yes.
and the adults who are relating to the social issues. But it also kind of goes one in hand, because both of those crowds need to have an understanding of what she's really about.
Right. And we're talking about none other than 12-time All-American swimmer Riley Gaines, a champion of single-sex spaces, keeping women safe in those spaces. And Leon, I mean, she really brought it during her visit here to Batesville.
Oh man, she was unbelievable. The one thing I wanted to make sure it was a date that my oldest daughter could be there, and my oldest daughter is very analytical,
Yes.
and can be very. She's a very critical thinker.
Right.
And after the show was done, it was recorded, and she said to me, she was really good.
Yeah.
And saying that, I hope one day I can sit in front of a crowd or stand behind a podium and speak the way she spoke to everyone tonight.
Yeah, it was a excellent event, no doubt. And going into it, I think I shared with you. I just wanted to make sure that we could bring and put on a presenter that those that were in attendance felt like it was worth their time.
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt like we were able to answer that question with a resounding yes.
And the crazy thing about it is, when you walked away, you didn't think I just listened to a 24-year-old just talk to me for an hour and a half.
Right. Definitely wise beyond her years. And, Riley, like yourself, a graduate from UK. So once again, a UK product coming to Batesville to spread the good news, or lack of a better term.
I think I'm slowly converting people to be a part of the Big Blue Nation.
Okay.
You know why I say that?
Why you say that?
What color shirt you got on?
Oh, here we go.
Yes.
Here we go. So before you go too far overboard, let's pick things up right there. In fact, here's Riley now talking about her decision to choose University of Kentucky over other schools throughout the SEC.
Flash forward here, getting ready to go to college. To your point, I did not know that I was going to go to University of Kentucky. I was not interested in University of Kentucky. They were not a prominent swimming school, as you could imagine. I thought I was going to be a Florida Gator. Took my trip to Florida, and then I realized orange is the ugliest color ever. So there was no way I was going there. And that definitely took Tennessee off my list, too. I talked to some people who are Tennessee fans. Rocky Top is annoying. Never for me. On a whim, I knew I did want to stay in the SEC because I'm biased. The SEC is the best conference. Yeah. Maybe you guys can join like Texas or Oklahoma or whatever other schools are doing. Feel free. Apparently it's a free-for-all. But I knew that's where I wanted to be. My dad, he's an SEC Hall of Famer. My mom, she played softball. My oldest sister played softball. My brother, he plays football now. So I knew this is where I wanted to be. Did not know about Kentucky. I thought the only things that came from Kentucky were like meth and Mountain Dew. Which
Wow.
I was interested in neither of those things.
By all means, do not hold back. Tell us how you really, really feel.
I'm not very good at holding back anyways. That's not the case. There's horses there too. But really, there could not have been a better place for me. I loved it. I loved my time there. I loved my coaches. I loved my team. I loved the resources that they poured into us outside of even just athletics. How they really cared about how we succeeded in the classroom, about our community service, both things that really mattered to me. So again, could not have been a better place for me. Flashing forward again, dealt with COVID in college, which was miserable, to say the least. March of 2020, that was the end of my sophomore year, so we lost in NCAA championships due to COVID. About 3 days before we were supposed to leave for this meet, the world shut down. But again, important in mentioning how we were robbed in that way. Come back, junior year, this is when I ended up winning my first individual SEC title. This is when University of Kentucky won its first ever SEC title as a team in program history. And I ended up placing my junior year, concluding my junior year, placing 7th in the country, which I was proud of. You're top 8, you're an All-American. It's a pretty high honor. It wasn't my best time, though. I knew I was capable of more. So it was really right then and there that I set my goal for my senior year to win a national title, which would, of course, mean becoming the fastest woman in the country in my respective event. Senior year rolls around. I'm right on pace to achieve this goal. About midway through my senior year, I was ranked 3rd in the nation, behind the girl in second, a girl I knew very well, trailing her by a few 100ths of a second. And I knew her very well because, like in most sports, your top tier athletes know of each other regardless of where you compete because you've grown up competing against each other. So I knew her very well. But the swimmer who was leading the nation, by body lengths, might I add, was a swimmer that none of us had ever heard of before. Not me, not my teammates, not my coaches, not other competitors, none of us. And this is the first time we became aware of a swimmer named Leah Thomas. Lots of red flags at the time. Keep in mind we hadn't seen a photo of this person or else things probably would have been a little more clear. But for all we knew at the time, this was a senior from UPenn, which is not a school that has historically or really ever produced a swimmer of that caliber. Again, leading the nation by body lengths in events ranging from the 100 freestyle, which is a sprint, all of the freestyle events in between through the mile, which is, of course, long distance. And for those of you who might not necessarily know a lot about swimming, think about that last part in terms of your Olympic runners, because it's like saying your best 200-meter runner is your best marathon runner. It doesn't happen. They're two totally different systems, but that's what we were seeing in this person. And so I'm scratching my head. I'm talking to my coaches. Who is this person? We had no idea, and we continued to stay in the dark until an article came out disclosing, very briefly, in a blip of a sentence, as if we were really supposed to just read right over it. This article said, word for word, Leah Thomas is formerly Will Thomas and swam 3 years on the men's team at University of Pennsylvania before deciding to switch to the women's team. And so when I read this, of course I was shocked. We were all shocked. It was never even a possibility in my head that this is why this person was beating everyone. Never even a possibility. So I was shocked, but really upon reading it, it was like this sense of relief. Like, oh, duh, it makes sense. He's a man. That's why he's beating everyone. I went to look up at this point who Will Thomas was because I was curious to see if this was a lateral movement at least, as if that would make that any better. If maybe he was leading the nation amongst the men and now just continuing to do that amongst the women, which is, of course, not what we saw. We saw that this was I'll be generous.
Okay.
A mediocre man. I think probably the better way to describe him competing in his rightful category is less than average man. Ranking 554th in the nation the year prior when competing in the men's category to again now, not just number one, I mean dominating the entire country of women by body lengths. But again, that's why I say I felt relieved. I thought the NCAA would see it how I saw it, how my teammates saw it, how anyone with any amount of brain activity would probably comprehend this. But lo and behold, the NCAA, headquartered right here in Indiana, did not. They saw absolutely nothing wrong with this. And so about 3 weeks before our national championships in March of 2022, they announced that Thomas's participation in the women's category was a non-negotiable, meaning there was nothing we could do about it. There was no questions we could ask, no concerns we could raise. We were quite literally told we had to accept this with a smile on our face. And so now, to finally get to your question about the NCAA championships themselves, let me just say I got to personally witness and really feel the effect that this infringement, or what I would call an injustice, had on myself and my teammates and my competitors. I don't claim to speak for every single girl on that pool deck. Of course not. But I do claim to speak for the overwhelming majority of us. Because I can wholeheartedly attest to the tears that I saw, not just from the moms in the stands watching as their daughters are being obliterated in the sport that they once loved, but the tears from the girls who placed 9th and 17th and missed out on being named an All-American by 1 place. And I can wholeheartedly attest to the extreme discomfort in the locker room when you turn around and there's a 6'4", 22-year-old man, fully intact, fully naked, fully exposing himself, inches away from where you were simultaneously fully undressed. I can wholeheartedly attest to the whispers, because that's what they were. They were whispers of anger and frustration from those girls who, just like myself, had worked our entire lives to get to that meet. And so the first day was the 500 freestyle, which is not an event that I do. And so I watched on the side of the pool as Thomas swam to a national title, to literally no one's surprise, beating out Olympians, beating out American record holders. Keep in mind, these aren't scrubs. They're the most impressive and accomplished female swimmers this world has ever seen, and he beat them all by body lengths. He became the first man to win a Division I NCAA women's title.
There's that.
Trailblazer. But the next day, he and I race in the 200 free. Get on the blocks, dive off. We swim 8 laps of freestyle, touch the wall at the end, look up at the scoreboard, and almost impossibly enough, we had gone the exact same time down to the 100th of a second, meaning we had tied, which one is incredibly embarrassing for a 6'4" man. He couldn't even beat me. But 2, you're racing for a minute and 40-ish seconds, and not even 1/100th separated us. You can't tell me that's not divine intervention. But we get out of the water, we go behind the awards podium, where the NCAA official looks at both Thomas and myself, again, Thomas towering over me, and he says, "Great job, you two, but you tied, and we only have 1 trophy, so we're going to give the trophy to Leah. Sorry, Riley, you don't get one." I just remember, my heart rate was still high, having just competed. My adrenaline was still pumping, and so the first thing that I thought ended up being the first thing that I said, and the first thought that I had was, isn't this everything that Title IX was passed to prevent from happening? What do you mean you're going to give the trophy to the man in the women's 200 free? He tried a couple different excuses. He's, stumbling on his words. They didn't really give him a script of what to say, and so he's, well, we're just doing this in chronological order. That was the first thing he said. And so I said, okay, do you mean alphabetical? Because G comes before T. Otherwise, I have no idea what you're being chronological about. We tied. And this is when, really, he knew at this point. There was no justification. There was no rationale. And understand, his face changed. He looked sad. He sounded sad. I could tell he didn't even believe what he was about to say, but he looked at me and he said, and I appreciate his honesty, he said, "Riley, I'm so sorry, but we have been advised as an organization that when photos are being taken, it's crucial that the trophy's in Leah's hands. You can pose with this one, but you have to give yours back. Leah takes the trophy home, you go home empty-handed, end of story." And that was the moment when, for me. We knew all season, like I said, we all did. We knew the unfair competition was wrong. We knew the locker room was wrong. We knew the silencing that we faced from our universities and our administrators. We knew all of that was wrong. But it wasn't until this official reduced everything we had worked our entire lives for down to a photo op to validate the feelings and the identity of a man at the expense of our own. That's when I could no longer wait. And I say wait because truthfully that's what I was doing. I just figured someone else would say something, right? Surely someone who was supposed to be protecting us would protect us, right? I thought a coach. I thought someone within the NCAA, someone with political power, some other swimmer, someone's dad, quite frankly, would come down there and yank this man out of our locker rooms. But it was in that moment that I realized what a naive thought that was. You know, to wait for people to do the right thing unprovoked. We would be waiting for forever. And it hit me, how in the world could I expect someone to stand up for me, for myself, if I wasn't even willing to stand up for myself? This has to come from us as women, as female athletes. So again, that was a very long-winded answer, which is in true swimmer fashion. But that's what in short, of what the meet looked like.
So Riley, since that event in 2022, you've gone on to be one of the most vocal defenders of women's single-sex spaces. What are some of the unique opportunities and settings you have found yourself in since taking on this topic?
Gosh, just about every setting I have found myself in has been unique in a way where just really understanding, like, this is never something that I sought after. This is never something that I wanted. Even still, this isn't something that I want. By no means have I guess leading up to this, did I ever feel prepared or qualified to do what I'm doing. I've been able to now testify before Congress and the Senate many times. And let me tell you, I was so intimidated the first time, right? Going to DC, right? The swamp. I was led to believe that these people are really smart. Let me tell you, if you can get them off of that little sheet of paper that their staffers prepare for them, they know nothing. So I am, even most recently, testifying before Congress. I was there to urge the Biden administration to halt with their illegal administrative rewrite of Title IX. Clearly, they did not listen to my pleas, but there was a big win here today in Indiana, which we can get into in a minute. It's the Oversight and Accountability Committee, so I'm one of the witnesses, the ranking member of the subcommittee. Her name is Representative Lee. She's a Democrat from Pennsylvania. She starts to read her opening monologue to the hearing, and she says, the first words that come out of her mouth, she says, "I can't believe that I'm forced to sit here and listen to her transphobic bigotry." And my heart broke, really. I didn't feel mad. I didn't feel angry. I felt entirely demoralized. I felt disheartened. A sitting member of Congress doesn't try to dissuade from my stance with facts or logic or reasoning or common sense or lived experience or science. What happened to follow the science? No, instead resorts to name calling. And so it's my turn to read my testimony, and so I do. I didn't even mean to say the last sentence. It accidentally just came out of my mouth. But I looked at her, and I said, "Representative Lee, if my opening testimony makes me transphobic, then understand, by your own logic, your opening monologue makes you a misogynist," which sent the hearing into a tailspin. It was as if she had never accurately heard the word misogynist used in a sentence. And so her staff comes running over, her counsel comes running over, they're pulling up their phones. I literally think they looked up the definition, because about 60 seconds later, she raises her hand and she says, I want her words removed from the record on the grounds of engaging in personalities, which Marjorie Taylor Greene was in that hearing. And so she buzzes in and she says, I would call a man posing as a woman someone who's engaging in personalities. And then it's like the Jerry Springer show. I'm like, oh gosh, what have I done here? People are jumping over tables. Nonetheless, congressional record still stands. There were no grounds to have my words removed. And someone even sent me her little Wikipedia page the other day. And at the very bottom of it, it says, as of whatever day she is a misogynist. I think it's awesome.
On the next